I need you next to me.
Hey Hannah, I'm just getting set up so I can see everybody. I'm gonna give people a few minutes to filter in, and then I'll get going. Probably start at 1:03. Hannah, what's going on? I can see you in the chat. Give people one more minute, then I'm gonna get rolling. All right, I'm gonna get going here. Start talking about some knee pain. So today we are going to talk about knee pain specifically when we're going downhill. Somebody recently asked me to talk about this, so we're going to dive in. And to start, we're going to work on exploring why this happens. There are a couple different reasons, so we'll get into that. How to ease the pain first, and then next, how to solve it altogether and just get it to go away completely. That's what we're going to do today. Now, 3 things can cause knee pain while you're going downhill, or you can have knee pain while you're going downstairs. Anything that kind of creates a lot of tension in the front of the knee on one side all at once. So those 3 things are doing too much too fast. So that's like January 1, you start your New Year's resolution and you go out and run 5 miles, and you haven't been running at all before then. So that's just doing too much of something, too much activity, too fast. And now the next thing is stopping something that you've done for whatever reason. Life happens, and then you start it up again at the same intensity, same level that you were doing when you stopped. So we use our January 1 idea. You were, base running about 1 mile every day, and you had a baby, and so you stopped running, and then you just go back in thinking, I've got to make up for lost time, and you start with running 2 miles after not running for postpartum 4 months, and so that can increase your pain. And this last thing that I've denoted in red happens a lot that I see in the clinic. And these people are often diagnosed by their doctor with arthritis, but it presents more like this sort of muscular tendon kind of problem when we really get in there and start working with them. And that happens when you just, it's like the ultimate example of what I'm going to talk about in this little chart here. You've done so little for so many years that now even your daily tasks are too much for your knees to tolerate. And that happens as our age-related decline in our muscles happens. So explaining this chart over here, basically we can think about it tissue-wise, but basically the quad tendon, the tendon in the front of your thigh, it gets so little activity that the tolerance to activity, the tolerance or the capacity to do things is less than what you're asking the body to do. So in all examples, this is true. The tendon is not tolerant, resistant, strong enough, whatever word you want to use, to withstand what you've asked of it without pain. And that's basically the underlying idea behind knee pain going downhill. Now, obviously, we've talked about that specific example of like walking or running downhill. A lot of people experience it with hiking because you do that a lot when you're going down the mountain. But people can also feel this when they sit with their knee bent for a prolonged period of time. So that's also something people may say when they're experiencing this. And it's usually right along the front of the kneecap, either above, below, or on the kneecap. If you have pain along the middle side of your knee or the outside of your knee, or you've had an injury, a recent injury, like you fell or you twisted it, those things may not be this. But that's generally what this sounds like when we're taking a look at it in the clinic. Now, if we want to understand a little bit more about the tissue, I'm explaining like the quad tendon, the tissue that runs along with your kneecap. When we have pain, that tissue, it heals. There's an inflammatory response, so it heals and it puts all this raw material down. It puts all these fibers down like pickup sticks. It just throws them in there. And that is a relatively inefficient way for the tendon to operate. The tendon, if you can see here on this lady, it goes like straight up and down. Those fibers are relatively straight up and down. So when you straighten your knee or you go downhill, those fibers are all in a line and they're very efficient at taking tension like a rope. When they're pickup sticks, it's very inefficient because there's lots of different angles going on and they're not doing their job like straight up and down. And how we fix the pickup sticks is we put it under gradually increasing tension. And tension can be just like kicking into the back of your leg. Now, not only does this help with the fibers, but it also makes our pain less. So that's really how we fix this. Tendons like tension, and so we give it tension little by little by little by little, and voila, it feels better, it gets stronger, and we're able to do the things that we want to do. And I'm going to give you a relatively simple framework to follow in the coming slides of like how to implement this. What exercise do I do? How much do I do of it? And where do I go from there? So that's the problem. The quad tendon's pissed off. We load it a little bit. It calms down. We do some exercise to get it stronger. And then we fix the problem. So let's see if this will pull up here. So this is a image or a video of doing a kick hold. And in this example, I'm wrapping my non-hurting leg around in front of the leg that is hurting, and I'm kicking into the back of my non-hurting leg and holding for a time. Now, depending on how mad the tendon is, it can be 10 seconds, it can be 30 seconds. It just kind of depends on what the person can tolerate. I generally recommend starting with 30 seconds 3 times. And you should feel a pretty quick improvement when you do this. So you can like grab a dictionary that you've got at home and step down off of it like you're going to go down a stair. And if that recreates your pain, remember that. And then do this exercise. Put the hurt leg behind the non-hurt leg. Kick moderate, not as hard as you possibly can. 4 or 5 out of 10 in terms of vigor on the push. And you hold that 3 times for 30 seconds. And then you can retest your dictionary step down and see if it's any better. And if it's not, then maybe we need to adjust the dosage down a little bit. But after you do this over and over and over and over again, we are going to create some increased capacity, some increased tolerance of the knee. So head back to our slide here. When we're just starting this exercise, I normally recommend 3 sets of 30 seconds, and you're going to hold that for a vigor of not as hard as you can. Somewhere in the middle, 4 or 5 out of 10 in terms of how hard you're pushing. And then progressing this, every day that the knee doesn't hurt while you do this morning and night, every day that it doesn't hurt worse, you're going to increase 5 seconds. So if you started at 30 seconds today and tomorrow it doesn't hurt worse, it hurts the same or it hurts less, you're going to increase to 35 seconds. All sets, both morning and night. And you're going to do that until you've reached 5 sets of 1 minute. And that's going to create some really good tolerance in that quad tendon. So that is the easing of the pain exercise. This is how we turn the pain knob down. And we should notice, like I said earlier with the dictionary step down test, you should notice a pretty rapid improvement in your pain when you do this. Like it should change immediately after you've done these holds. Okay? Next. Next, we're going to start to strengthen. So now we've got a lever that we can pull to make our knee feel better. We're going to remember that, file that away because we may need it. But we're going to start to apply some body weight exercises now. And it's nice to do these on a cadence where you're holding and where you're slowly moving through the range. So you're keeping a lot of tension on that tendon. You can see how I'm going up and down on the count of 5. That whole time my quad is under tension for 10 seconds, all the way up, all the way down through various range of motion. Okay, so that's how we can start to pivot from calming the pain down to getting the knee stronger so that it's going to tolerate whatever it is that pissed it off in the first place. If it was our run, if it was our step downs on the trail, if it was 5,000 feet of elevation gain and loss, if it was you started, your January 1st 5-mile run, this is a good way to start to transition from pain relief to strengthening. Now, you can do any sort of exercise. You can do bridges, you can do lunges, squats, anything that's going to use the quad muscle. In this example, I'm using a squat because it uses a lot of different muscle in your legs, and it's relatively functional. We need to get off the toilet, we need to get off chairs in our daily life, so that's a really useful movement to start with. But if you prefer other exercises, by all means, you can do those too. Because there are so many different kinds of exercises, I don't have a really solid, bulletproof way of progressing this because each exercise is going to be different and how difficult it is just in and of the exercise selection. But generally, 1 to 3 sets of 10 to 20 reps is a good place to start for body weight. When you're just doing body weight, you can do more than you can think all in one set. So that's why it's upwards of 20. Shoot, maybe you could do 50 reps in one set. But it just depends on how strong you are when you start and what exercise it is. Like a bridge, for example, you probably can do a lot of reps of that if you've got the range of motion for it, because it's more of an isolation exercise versus a squat where you're using a lot of different muscles. If you have questions on this, feel free to reach out in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and check and see if I can see comments. Oh, we've got so many people in here. What's going on, Kevin? Haven't been good watching the chat. If you've got questions, people, throw them in the chat. So that's our getting stronger transition. Next, after we felt better and we're, this is like where you start to discharge from physical therapy, right? You get your pain under control, and depending on how many sessions you have and your insurance and where you're at in your healing journey, they may kick you out the door before you start any of this kind of stuff. So this is the beauty of taking your pain and healing it and then transforming yourself into someone who can do more than you could have done before. So this is where fitness, you are working on squats and lunges and leg press, and you're getting in the gym and not only getting your tissue capacity back to where it was, but better and stronger than it was. And we do this by gradually increasing the weight over time. So for example, we've got this gal who's got a 10-pound on her barbell. Maybe for a couple weeks she does 10 pounds and increases the number of reps she can do on the sets in between. So Monday she does 3 sets of 10. On Wednesday she does 3 sets of 12. And then on the following week, instead of doing 10 pounds, she's going to put a 10 pound and a 2.5 on each side. And then gradually increasing that over and over and over again until she's got a 45-pound plate on there. And that's going to really create a lot of potential to do things, to do crazy elevation, to do lots of running, to do Olympic lifts where you're pushing weight quickly over your head. And this is the beauty of creating a foundation with therapy and then taking it to the next level. I did make a note here, like at this point, you may still be having pain, but it's not really an issue. You've gone past the point where you're really worried about pain, and we're more feeling like some muscle burn, some discomfort, just from exercising, this normal exercise related discomfort. It's not really pain at this point. And even if you did have pain, we know how to calm it down, right? We know this exercise has worked for us in the past, and we can find on our own an appropriate dose that is going to help calm it down should a squat or a lunge or something actually hurt. So this is the problem fixed. If you notice, like these are now switched. Our capacity is so much higher than what we're asking our activity level to do because we've reoriented those fibers. We've gotten the quad stronger. We've gotten the tendon stronger. And now we can do whatever the heck we want, right? We can go for a run. We can do squats. We can do mountain hikes. Whatever it is that you want to do, you've created the capacity to do it. And I just wanted to share a quick story about somebody who I helped in Colorado last year with this. She had quite the story. It started without being able to really walk her dog around the block. And we did use some dry needling in her case to really get it to calm down. But, you know, severe knee pain. She couldn't even hardly walk. And a super active lady wants to do yoga and hike in the mountains, fly fish. And after a couple months of modifying the dosage and finding the right thing that the right progression for her, we were able to get her back. And, you know, at times there she was fearful of like, oh, what if this is arthritis? What if this is, you know, maybe I need to get an MRI to see what's going on in there. And just based on her presentation, I knew it was coming from her quad. And I think one important thing to note from her particular case is she is a grad student, and ending her grad student tenure, she's like deciding what to do next. And that creates a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear and raises the threat level just inherently on the nervous system. And so I think that was a piece of her pain. There's not a lot I can do in a physical therapy sense for that threat level when you're in school. And so it took a little bit more time in the beginning to find that fine-tuned dose of the kick hold to get that knee pain to calm down. But after we got to the transition point, it was a breeze. She was, you know, tolerating squats and lunges, and although she doesn't really like them, that's what you do to get back to hiking. So this process does work. I use it all the time in the clinic. This case is a little bit more relevant to people in their daily life because right now in my current contract, I'm seeing a lot of people who haven't moved for decades and decades and decades, and that is really tough. There's a lot of beliefs wrapped up in that, and it's just outside the scope of this conversation, but finding the right dosage for them is very difficult. So hopefully that's all I got. It's the quick and dirty front knee pain, how to fix it. I'm going to put this video when it's over up on YouTube, and that way you guys can refer back to it. It'll live on Facebook for a while. I don't know if sometimes the lives are only available for 30 days. So that's why I'm going to download it and put it on YouTube for you all. But honestly, if this is you, if you're having front knee pain, you're wanting to be more active, wanting to lose weight, just wanting to be more healthy, lift the grandkids, go on hikes, do whatever it is that you want to do, feel free to reach out here on Facebook. Reach out to me via phone number if you've got my contact, and let's see if we can figure it out. But that's all I got, fam bam. I really appreciate everybody stopping by. And I'm going to leave it at that. So thank you, much love, and we will talk very soon.